About St. Paul's Cathedral. St. Paul's Cathedral, formerly the Cathedral Church of St. Paul the Apostle, is an Anglican cathedral in London, England, the seat of the Bishop of London. The cathedral serves as the mother church of the Diocese of London. It is on Ludgate Hill at the highest point of the City of London. Its dedication in honor of Paul the Apostle dates back to the original church on this site, founded in AD 604. The present structure, which was completed in 1710, is a Grade I listed building that was designed in the English Baroque style by Sir Christopher Wren. The cathedral's reconstruction was part of a major rebuilding program initiated in the aftermath of the Great Fire of London. The earlier Gothic cathedral, Old St. Paul's Cathedral, largely destroyed in the Great Fire, was a central focus for medieval and early modern London, including Paul's Walk and St. Paul's Churchyard, being the site of St. Paul's Cross. The cathedral is one of the most famous and recognizable sights of London. Its dome, surrounded by the spires of Wren's city churches, has dominated the skyline for over 300 years. At 365 feet, 111 meters high, it was the tallest building in London from 1710 to 1963. The dome is still one of the highest in the world. St. Paul's is the second largest church building in area in the United Kingdom, after Liverpool Cathedral. Services held at St. Paul's have included the funerals of Admiral Lord Nelson, the Duke of Wellington, Winston Churchill and Margaret Thatcher, Jubilee celebrations for Queen Victoria, an inauguration service for the Metropolitan Hospital Sunday Fund, peace services marking the end of the First and Second World Wars, the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer, the launch of the Festival of Britain, and the Thanksgiving services for the Silver, Golden, Diamond, and Platinum Jubilees and the 80th and 90th birthdays of Queen Elizabeth II. St. Paul's Cathedral is the central subject of much promotional material, as well as of images of the dome surrounded by the smoke and fire of the Blitz. The cathedral is a working church with hourly prayer and daily services. The tourist entry fee at the door is £25 for adults, January 2024, but no charges are made to worshippers attending services, or for private prayer. The nearest London Underground station is St. Paul's, which is 130 yards, 120 meters, away from St. Paul's Cathedral. History of St. Paul's Cathedral. The location of Londinium's original cathedral is unknown, but legend and medieval tradition claims it was St. Peter upon Cornhill. St. Paul is an unusual attribution for a cathedral, and suggests there was another one in the Roman period. Legends of St. Lucius link St. Peter upon Cornhill as the center of the Roman Londinium Christian community. It stands upon the highest point in the area of Old Londinium, and it was given preeminence in medieval procession on account of the legends. There is, however, no other reliable evidence, and the location of the site on the forum makes it difficult for it to fit the legendary stories. In 1995, a large 5th century building on Tower Hill was excavated, and has been claimed as a Roman basilica, possibly a cathedral, although this is speculative. The Elizabethan antiquarian William Camden argued that a temple to the goddess Diana had stood during Roman times on the site occupied by the medieval St. Paul's Cathedral. Wren reported that he had found no trace of any such temple during the works to build the new cathedral after the Great Fire, and Camden's hypothesis is no longer accepted by modern archaeologists. There is evidence for Christianity in London during the Roman period, but no firm evidence for the location of churches or a cathedral. Bishop Restitutus is said to have represented London at the Council of Alls in 314 AD. A list of the 16 archbishops of London was recorded by Jocelyn of Furness in the 12th century, claiming London's Christian community was founded in the 2nd century under the legendary King Lucius and his missionary saints Fagin, Deruvian, Elvanus, and Medwin. None of that is considered credible by modern historians, but, although the surviving text is problematic, either Bishop Restitutus or Adelphius at the 314 Council of Alls seems to have come from Londinium. Bede records that in AD 604 Augustine of Canterbury consecrated Mellitus as the first bishop to the Anglo-Saxon kingdom of the East Saxons and their king, Sabert. Sabert's uncle and overlord, Ethelbert, King of Kent, built a church dedicated to St. Paul in London, as the seat of the new bishop. It is assumed, although not proved, that this first Anglo-Saxon cathedral stood on the same site as the later medieval and the present cathedrals. On the death of Sabert in about 616, his pagan sons expelled Mellitus from London, and the East Saxons reverted to paganism. The fate of the first cathedral building is unknown. Christianity was restored among the East Saxons in the late 7th century, and it is presumed that either the Anglo-Saxon cathedral was restored, or a new building erected as the seat of bishops such as Cedd, Wine and Erkenwald, the last of whom was buried in the cathedral in 693. Erkenwald was consecrated Bishop of London in 675, and is said to have bestowed great cost on the fabric, and in later times he almost occupied the place of traditionary founder. The veneration paid to him is second only to that which was rendered to St. Paul. Erkenwald would become a subject of the important high medieval poem Street Erkenwald. King Athelred the Unready was buried in the cathedral on his death in 1016. The tomb is now lost. The cathedral was burnt, with much of the city, in a fire in 1087, as recorded in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. The fourth St. Paul's, generally referred to as Old St. Paul's, was begun by the Normans after the 1087 fire. A further fire in 1135 disrupted the work, and the new cathedral was not consecrated until 1240. During the period of construction, the style of architecture had changed from Romanesque to Gothic, and this was reflected in the pointed arches and larger windows of the upper parts and east end of the building. The Gothic ribbed vault was constructed, like that of York Minster, of wood rather than stone, which affected the ultimate fate of the building. An enlargement program commenced in 1256. This new work was consecrated in 1300 but not complete until 1314. During the later medieval period, St. Paul's was exceeded in length only by the Abbey Church of Cluny, and in the height of its spire only by Lincoln Cathedral and St. Mary's Church, Stralsund. Excavations by Francis Penrose in 1878 showed that it was 585 feet, 178 meters, long and 100 feet, 30 meters, wide, 290 feet, 88 meters, across the transepts and crossing. The spire was about 489 feet, 149 meters in height. By the 16th century the building was deteriorating. The English Reformation under Henry VIII and Edward VI, accelerated by the Chantries Acts, led to the destruction of elements of the interior ornamentation and the chapels, shrines, and chantries. The Reformation would come to include the removal of the cathedral's collection of relics, which by the 16th century was understood to include the body of St. Erkenwald, both arms of St. Mellitus, a knife thought to belong to Jesus, hair of Mary Magdalene, blood of St. Paul, milk of the Virgin Mary, the head of St. John, the skull of Thomas Becket, the head and jaw of King Ethelbert, part of the wood of the cross, a stone of the Holy Sepulchre, a stone from the spot of the Ascension, and some bones of the 11,000 Virgins of Cologne. In October 1538, an image of St. Erkenwald, probably from the shrine, was delivered to the master of the king's jewels. Other images may have survived, at least for a time. More systematic iconoclasm happened in the reign of Edward VI. The Grey Friars Chronicle reports that the rood and other images were destroyed in November 1547. In late 1549, at the height of the iconoclasm of the Reformation, Sir Rowland Hill altered the route of his Lord Mayor's Day procession and set a de profundis at the tomb of Erkenwald. Later in Hill's mayoralty of 1550, the high altar of St. Paul's was removed overnight to be destroyed, an occurrence that provoked a fight in which a man was killed. Hill had ordered, unusually for the time, that St. Barnabas's Day would not be kept as a public holiday ahead of these events. 3 years later, by October 1553, all the altars and chapels in All Paul's Church were taken down. In August 1553, the dean and chapter were cited to appear before Queen Mary's commissioners. Some of the buildings in the St. Paul's churchyard were sold as shops and rental properties, especially to printers and booksellers. In 1561 the spire was destroyed by a lightning strike, an event that Roman Catholic writers claimed was a sign of God's judgment on England's Protestant rulers. Bishop James Pilkington preached a sermon in response, claiming that the lightning strike was a judgment for the irreverent use of the cathedral building. Immediate steps were taken to repair the damage, with the citizens of London and the clergy offering money to support the rebuilding. However, the cost of repairing the building properly was too great for a country and city recovering from a trade depression. Instead, the roof was repaired and a timber roof put on the steeple. In the 1630s, a west front was added to the building by England's first classical architect, Inigo Jones. There was much defacing and mistreatment of the building by parliamentarian forces during the Civil War, and the old documents and charters were dispersed and destroyed. During the Commonwealth, those churchyard buildings that were raised supplied ready-dressed building material for construction projects, such as the Lord Protector's City Palace, Somerset House. Crowds were drawn to the northeast corner of the churchyard, St. Paul's Cross, where open-air preaching took place. In the Great Fire of London of 1666, Old St. Paul's was gutted. While it might have been possible to reconstruct it, a decision was taken to build a new cathedral in a modern style. This course of action had been proposed even before the fire. The task of designing a replacement structure was officially assigned to Sir Christopher Wren on July 30, 1669. He had previously been put in charge of the rebuilding of churches to replace those lost in the Great Fire. More than 50 city churches are attributable to Wren. Concurrent with designing St. Paul's, Wren was engaged in the production of his 5 tracts on architecture. Wren had begun advising on the repair of the old St. Paul's in 1661. 5 years before the fire in 1666. The proposed work included renovations to interior and exterior to complement the classical facade designed by Inigo Jones in 1630. Wren planned to replace the dilapidated tower with a dome, using the existing structure as a scaffold. He produced a drawing of the proposed dome which shows his idea that it should span nave and aisles at the crossing. After the fire, it was at first thought possible to retain a substantial part of the old cathedral, but ultimately the entire structure was demolished in the early 1670s. In July 1668, Dean William Sancroft wrote to Wren that he was charged by the Archbishop of Canterbury, in agreement with the bishops of London and Oxford, to design a new cathedral that was handsome and noble to all the ends of it, and to the reputation of the city and the nation. The design process took several years, but a design was finally settled and attached to a royal warrant, with the proviso that Wren was permitted to make any further changes that he deemed necessary. The result was the present St. Paul's Cathedral, still the second largest church in Britain, with a dome proclaimed as the finest in the world. The building was financed by a tax on coal, and was completed within its architect's lifetime, with many of the major contractors engaged for the duration. The topping out of the cathedral, when the final stone was placed on the lantern, took place on October 26, 1708, performed by Wren's son Christopher Jr., and the son of one of the masons. The cathedral was declared officially complete by Parliament on December 25, 1711, Christmas Day. In fact, construction continued for several years after that, with the statues on the roof added in the 1720s. In 1716, the total costs amounted to £1,095,556, £207 million in 2023. On December 2, 1697, 31 years and 3 months after the Great Fire destroyed Old St. Paul's, the new cathedral was consecrated for use. The Right Reverend Henry Compton, Bishop of London, preached the sermon. It was based on the text of Psalm 122. I was glad when they said unto me, Let us go into the house of the Lord. The first regular service was held on the following Sunday. Opinions of Wren's cathedral differed, with some loving it. Without, within, below, above, the eye is filled with unrestrained delight, while others hated it. There was an air of popery about the gilded capitals, the heavy arches. They were unfamiliar, un-English. Since 1900, suffragette terror attacks, St. Paul's was the target of 2 suffragette bombing attacks in 1913 and 1914 respectively. This was as part of the suffragette bombing and arson campaign between 1912 and 1914, in which suffragettes from the Women's Social and Political Union, as part of their campaign for women's suffrage, carried out a series of politically motivated bombings and arson nationwide. churches were explicitly targeted by the suffragettes, as they believed the Church of England was complicit in reinforcing opposition to women's suffrage. Between 1913 and 1914, 32 churches across Britain were attacked. The first attack on St. Paul's occurred on May 8, 1913, at the start of a sermon. A bomb was heard ticking and discovered as people were entering the cathedral. It was made out of potassium nitrate. Had it exploded, the bomb likely would have destroyed the historic bishop's throne and other parts of the cathedral. The remains of the device, which was made partly out of a mustard tin, are now on display at the City of London Police Museum. A second bombing of the cathedral by the suffragettes was attempted on June 13, 1914. However, the bomb was again discovered before it could explode. This attempted bombing occurred 2 days after a bomb had exploded at Westminster Abbey, which damaged the coronation chair and caused a mass panic for the exits. Several other churches were bombed at this time, such as St. Martin-in-the-Fields Church in Trafalgar Square and the Metropolitan Tabernacle. The cathedral survived the Blitz, although struck by bombs on October 10, 1940 and April 17, 1941. The first strike destroyed the high altar, while the second strike on the north transept left a hole in the floor above the crypt. The latter bomb is believed to have detonated in the upper interior above the north transept, and the force was sufficient to shift the entire dome laterally by a small amount. On September 12, 1940, a time-delayed bomb that had struck the cathedral was successfully defused and removed by a bomb disposal detachment of Royal Engineers under the command of Temporary Lieutenant Robert Davies. Had this bomb detonated, it would have totally destroyed the cathedral. It left a 100-foot, 30 m, crater when later remotely detonated in a secure location. As a result of this action, Davies and sapper George Cameron Wiley were each awarded the George Cross. Davies' George Cross and other medals are on display at the Imperial War Museum, London. One of the best-known images of London during the war was a photograph of St. Paul's taken on December 29, 1940 during the Second Great Fire of London, by photographer Herbert Mason, from the roof of a building in Tudor Street showing the cathedral shrouded in smoke. Lisa Jardine of Queen Mary, University of London, has written, "Wreathed in billowing smoke, amidst the chaos and destruction of war, the pale dome stands proud and glorious, indomitable." At the height of that air raid, Sir Winston Churchill telephoned the Guildhall to insist that all firefighting resources be directed at St. Paul's. "The cathedral must be saved," he said. "Damage to the fabric would sap the morale of the country." On July 29, 1981, the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer was held at the cathedral. The couple selected St. Paul's over Westminster Abbey, the traditional site of royal weddings, because the cathedral offered more seating. Extensive copper, lead and slate renovation work was carried out on the dome in 1996 by John B. Chambers. A 15-year restoration project, one of the largest ever undertaken in the UK, was completed on June 15, 2011. In October 2011, an anti-capitalism Occupy London encampment was established in front of the cathedral, after failing to gain access to the London Stock Exchange at Paternoster Square nearby. The cathedral's finances were affected by the ensuing closure. It was claimed that the cathedral was losing revenue of £20,000 per day. Canon Chancellor Giles Fraser resigned, asserting his view that evicting the anti-capitalist activists would constitute violence in the name of the church. The Dean of St. Paul's, the Right Rev. Graham Knowles, then resigned too. The encampment was evicted at the end of February 2012, by court order and without violence, as a result of legal action by the City of London Corporation. On October 10, 2019, Sophia Amira Sheikh, a Muslim convert, was arrested following an MI5 and Metropolitan Police investigation. In September 2019, she had taken photos of the cathedral's interior. While trying to radicalize others using the Telegram messaging software, she planned to attack the cathedral and other targets such as a hotel and a train station using explosives. Sheikh pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life imprisonment. That's the history. For more clarity and completeness, you can directly visit St. Paul's Cathedral to learn its history more completely, because the material in this video is only sourced from articles, for the completeness and accuracy of the information cannot be ascertained. only as learning material and additional reference for you. Note: St. Paul's Cathedral is one of the largest and most famous churches in London. With its towering dome, the cathedral is a symbol of the city and has witnessed many important events in British history, including the wedding of Prince Charles and Princess Diana in 1981. Built by Sir Christopher Wren after the Great Fire of London in 1666, the cathedral combines Baroque style with classical elements. The interior of St. Paul's Cathedral is decorated with beautiful mosaics and paintings, as well as monuments dedicated to national heroes. Visitors can also climb to the top of the dome for stunning views of London.